Thank you, Melinda. And would everyone please just join me in a moment of prayer. Holy God, we thank you so much for this day. Thank you for this community. We thank you for our connections to you. May we be inspired today. May our hearts be opened. May my words be pleasing to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. All right, a caveat today. I gave you a caveat last week, and I will give a caveat today. So, there was a line at McDonald's, and I couldn't get my coffee. And so I was short on time, so I didn't. May I ask someone who has a servant heart to get me some water here, because in case I start choking, I won't. Okay. Thank you. And you can just put in the cooler around the corner. That's fine. Thank you so much. All right. So I'm doing the best I can, and I think I'm okay. Like I said, I come in here and see the face of God, and I am just uplifted, and it's amazing. I also, today, would usually be what we call Rally Sunday, back in the old days when, it was like a big kickoff of the church year for school and stuff. And so today is sort of an homage to Rally Sunday, and we have our families in here with us today, and some of our young people are going to talk to us, but I just wanted to acknowledge the presence of all of you, and I was there, and I know the effort of getting families to church on Sunday morning all together can sometimes be a challenge. Thank you so much, and I really, really appreciate your presence here in our community, just as I appreciate all of you, and of course, shout out to our online people. I'm expecting a bunch of comments with that. Okay. All right, so with that said, so today's story is one of, actually, all of them are my favorite stories, probably aside from the prodigal son and the story of Jonah. Those are my favorite. And then I just love the story of Thomas and Mary Magdalene after Easter. Those are both great stories too. But after the story of that loving father, the one known as the prodigal son, and the story of Jonah, the story of Eutychus and the story of the Syro-Phoenician woman and the man who was closed up are some of the most important lessons in the Bible. We don't hear about them very much. In fact, I could not find where Eutychus is listed in the lectionary, because I inserted Eutychus today because it's such an important story. It's an essential story, and we never hear about it. How many of you have heard of Eutychus? Good. And so Eutychus is, everybody should know Eutychus, because Eutychus is a great story and a great metaphor of what happens when people fall out the window. So these are stories about people on the edges, liminal people. And liminal comes from the Latin limen, which means threshold. Okay, so like a doorway. And so thresholds are spaces of transition. Transition from in to out. But if you really think about it, it's very hard to define, because when does out become in, and when does in become out? At what point in a doorway are you there? But some say, who cares? Some may ask, like I said, when is out in and in out? Some will say, well, of course, when you feel the rain or the sun beating on your head, you're out. And if you need a lamp, you're in. It's pretty clear. But is it? Are those who remain on the outside? Oop, wrong page. So if we look psychologically or socially, Okay, or let's say you're invited to a picnic with a group and everybody is out there and you're shut in here. Then suddenly out looks in and in looks out. And we can also see out, sometimes it's bad, but then you also see out as a good term. Out of a cult, out of prison, out of abusive relationships, out publicly about who we are or who we love. Out is sometimes very good. But regardless of the context, what does it mean to be out on the outside, or in, or to start at an end point? When is that point of transition? Well, maybe the wall, but then let's say you're in a big fat adobe wall like those ones in the Mission that have a couple of feet of transition. And some of those doorways are really big. And so, at what point there are you out or in a building? Some buildings have thin walls, a couple of inches. But then, who cares? We enter doors and exit doors every day, in and out. Nobody notices. And that's the point. We do go in and we do go out. Many of us, actually, all of us, walked into this sanctuary, either walking or with some mobility device, and came through these doors, and we came inside. Now, of course, I'm speaking metaphorically. There are still people who are outside of this building and remain there, yet they are in community right now, and that's you online. Those who have come in with a technology lemon. They've come through a portal, and they're here today. But they're family nonetheless. All of you are family. Not to mention the friends and family who will connect later on by watching this video later in the week, maybe years later. They're all part of community. It's made so by time and ability, location, circumstance. But everyone who is in here has come through a liminal space and are now watching and engaging with this service in and out. But who cares, right? I guess I'm splitting hairs and thinking about this in and out thing too much. But we know in, we know out. But do we really know out? So in our scriptural stories today, we hear about out and some people who are on the outside. A nameless Syro-Phoenician woman, and Eutychus, a young man from Troas. And Troas is in Anatolia. It's that upper part of Turkey where you're heading into the Bosphorus to go into the Black Sea. It's up in the corner there. And then there's a man who can't speak or hear. Are they insiders? Are all these people insiders, or are they outsiders? What are they? Who cares? Well, first, the woman who came to Jesus is an outsider. She's not Jewish, but she's a person whose family, who's lived in that region dating back historically for generations. She is Syro-Phoenician. So she goes back to the Syrian and Phoenician peoples, part of a region that overlapped Jewish kingdoms, Assyrian and Greek Seleucid empires. And now she's in Rome, in the region of Palestine, and her people go back to that region generations, maybe further. But because of the situation politically and religiously, she is outside the Jewish faith tradition. and Roman citizenship, so she is an outsider. So she comes to Jesus out of desperation to cure her sick daughter, who's described as having a demon. So we don't know what she has. In the ancient world, demons could be anything from a physical condition to a mental condition. But it was a bad spirit. And in a very, very bold move. And a bold move not only for an outsider, but for a woman to come up to Jesus and take the initiative to speak up for herself. But her daughter's life depends on it. So she asks, and Jesus responds with the standard corporate response. Because she's an outsider, she's a Gentile, she's Syro-Phoenician. She shouldn't even be talking to Jesus, who's a pretty important Jewish rabbi who's kind of on the rise. And he tells her, basically, go away, you're a dog. Your daughter's a dog. You're less than. You are the other. You're an outsider in your own home, by the way. See ya, wouldn't want to be ya. Surprising language coming from Jesus. But he's responding in a way that she has heard her whole life. And many preachers will use this, and it's a good way to use this, as Jesus being open to learning a lesson. But to me, Jesus is based so much in Isaiah and the gospel of my house is a home for all people, going out and reaching the people who have been ostracized and disenfranchised, that I don't think that Jesus was actually learning from her. I really think that he was sort of putting it to her, you've been called a dog your whole life. How do you feel about that? And in that moment, she doesn't slink away. But she responds to Jesus. She responds to Jesus almost like a rabbi would. And she says, yes, I'm a dog. But dogs have a place too. And you know what? Dogs are at the table. Might be under the table, and I've known a few dogs who actually have places at tables. But instead of using the usual response to the language of degradation, she rises up and serves it back to Jesus. And I like to think Jesus thinking, way to go. And actually in Fun Day School, we often have talks about dogs. We're pretty much a dog group. I don't think there are any cats in the group. But yes, dogs are people. And actually, some of the dogs have even come to Fun Day School online. So it's beautiful. So at what she said, Jesus doesn't say anything more, but then go back to your daughter. The demon has left her. And I think he wanted to say the demon's left you too. And her daughter is cured by her bold move of self-advocacy. And all the while she was advocating for another liminal person. And she was speaking truth and coming from a place of dignity, courage, and worth. In that moment then, who's outside? Who's inside? Who cares? Now we had our second story. Well, I'm skipping over the guy in the middle, and we're going to Eutychus. And Eutychus actually means fortunate. Eu is good. Tychus means fate or chance, so it's good luck. In other words, lucky. So how much more of an insider do you have to be than to be named fortunate? And also note, Eutychus is young. They say a young man. There were some videos that I was watching, and they have Eutychus is like middle-aged and like a big beard. Eutychus is young. I actually like to think that Eutychus is probably still a teenager. And that's important, because Eutychus gets invited to a gathering where Paul is speaking and a Christian community is gathering upstairs. And Paul starts preaching and preaching and preaching for hours and preaching and preaching. And Eutychus gets drowsy and drowsy. You know the feeling. Stuffy room, droning preacher who goes on and on, who doesn't know a clock if he saw one. And then Eutychus falls asleep. No big deal, right? Who cares? Falling asleep during a boring sermon? Everyone's done that. Actually, my wife has done that quite a bit. Yeah. But Eutychus is in the third-story window of a building, and he falls out. A liminal space, no glass. In, out. Does anyone notice? Right now, I'm going to invite some of our young people up, and I invited them to think about times that they felt like they were falling out a window, and did anybody notice? Or if they saw someone who fell out, who fell away, did anyone notice? Were they brought back, or were they left for dead? So here are some thoughts of falling. We'll say it like that. So I'm going to invite all three of the dailies up, and you guys are welcome to sit in the thrones, be enthroned, and while we wait, and then you can come up one after another. So this is Eli and Patrick and Lucas, and they come to Sunday school regularly. And in fact, I'm going to share one story about your family that I just think is amazing, is that they came in about 5 minutes late online, and they said, we were in the park playing, and we saw it was time for Sunday school. And I'm like, wow, wow. So I invite you guys to come up. Who's going first? Patrick. Okay, this is Patrick.
Hello, my name is Patrick Daly, and I'm 16 years old.
It's off? Yeah, because we got my my little thingy going here. Sorry about that. On. Hello? It's on? It's on? Okay, you're on.
Hello, my name is Patrick Daly, and I am 16 years old. I fell out the window learning poetry in middle school. We analyzed old poems by famous poets. The problem was that the poems were written so long ago that I didn't understand them. And I failed to find meaning. My teacher was decent, but didn't try to make it better or more relevant for us kids. Poetry is supposed to be fun, but it felt to me like a chore. I ended up very much disliking poetry. I was revived in high school. In my high school English class, we got to read and listen to poems that kids our age had made recently. I was able to understand these poems, relate, and think about what they meant. Then we got to write 3 of our own poems, which brought out my creativity. It was a lot of fun. My high school English teacher got us students engaged and interested in poetry. By having us read poems we understood, She helped us care about poetry and see value in it. By having us write our own poems, we got to experience poetry at a deeper level and put our learning to use. Due to my past experiences, when I teach younger kids stuff that I know, I try not to make them fall out the window. I like to focus on teaching things that will practically benefit them, and I try to make what I'm teaching easy to understand so that they stay focused and don't have an excuse to fall out the window. Although it was challenging falling out the window during poetry, it taught me to not let the same happen to others.
Next is Eli.
Hello, my name is Eli Daly, and I'm 13 years old. I had a fall out the window moment back when I first started school in kindergarten. I don't remember most of it now, but my parents do and have reminded me of that year. We think that I don't remember that year because I was young and may have blocked it out. And why I may have blocked it out is because it was such a hard time for me. Before that, I had really liked pre-K and preschool, and my teachers had always supported me and told my parents that I was doing well. Then, in kindergarten, it all changed. I would no longer like school. In fact, I told my parents almost every day that I did not want to go. I was upset most days, felt sad a lot of the time, and got in trouble too. The biggest reason for this is that I had a mean and unkind teacher. The teacher also had too many students, and this was her first year of teaching. She did not have the time, ability, or desire to really figure out what was going on with me or what I needed in order to do well and feel good about school. I finished that year hating school. As they say, first impressions do matter a lot. I definitely fell out the window in kindergarten, like Eutychus did. Did anyone bring me back to life? Well, my next 3 teachers in in-person school were better. However, it was not enough to make up for such a bad start to school, or to change the bad reputation I had. It wasn't until I started online school in 4th grade, that I actually started succeeding in school and felt like I could be a good student. I think what brought me back to life was that I was now surrounded by my parents and brothers who loved me, and that I had a supportive teacher and was starting in a fresh new school. I am still in online school and I really like it, and I'm so happy I got brought back to life by people who loved me.
Hello, my name is Lucas Daly and I'm 11 years old. My fell out the window moment was when my 3rd grade teacher would drone on and on about math, and now I start to daydream about other things. I really started to dislike math from then on, and I started to dread it when my teacher would start to talk about math. I would doodle whenever I was supposed to be writing the math problems. I did not like math, and I started cheating by using a calculator, rather than learning math like I was supposed to be. This continued for the next year too. But I was saved by my 5th grade teacher who made math much more fun. She started doing fun quizzes, even student-led ones where I got to lead often. This made math easier, more interesting, and I started to think that math was okay. Even though I fell out the window in 3rd grade math, I was saved by another teacher, and now I feel that math, although it is not my favorite subject, I will continue trying and learning it.
Yes, you did great. You can go ahead and go sit back down, punch. Next, I'd like to invite Sarah up. Sarah, did you have something? If not, that's okay too. No? Do you want me to read it? Do you have something to read, or are we? No? Okay. And that's perfectly fine. I'm not going to push you out the window. So, I have to mention that Sarah and Emmett, they participate in online and in Turbo Time here. And I always enjoy, Sarah puts up little borders around her screen, or sometimes she has little unicorn hats or something. Give a shout out there. And then Emmett's presence here at Turbo Time always energizes us. So I want to thank you guys for being here and present in our congregation. And so I also, Lily and Eva, would you come up? I'm sorry. I'm taking you to the edge of the window. So, I just wanted you to have a moment that Lily and Eva are sometimes like that elder son in the prodigal, in the story of the prodigal, and they are so faithful, and they are here on Sundays. They teach Turbo Time, and they get the lessons together, and they're not sharing their falling out the window stories. And I know you guys probably have some. But I just wanted to recognize that their dedication and their presence here always, and playing music and coming up to speak. And like I said, they're like that elder son, but they don't complain. And so it's amazing. So they're always cheerful. And I always wanted to give you guys a shout out for being here in our community. Thank you guys. And then I have to do a shout out to you guys can stand up because you're kind of in the middle. But if you stand up, Ronan and Griffin and Artemis, please. And Ronan and Griffin and Artemis come to Turbo Time regularly, and they are such faithful attendees of our community. And you may see them on Sundays coming out with Pastor Michael and me, because they greet us over in the choir room. And so they bring a life to our campus that you may have seen. And they are so appreciated too. And they really make the core of what Turbo Time's about, along with Lily and Eva teaching it, along with Marilyn and Steve. And so we're expanding all of this. So there are children's programs, family programs, and we do it, we're learning to do it in different ways. So, thank you, but my sermon isn't... So, like Paul, my sermon isn't over. So, we have heard over and over how mainline Protestant churches are shrinking, how the church is in crisis. Young people are falling away in record numbers. But what can the church do? Who cares? Old ideas for old timers, rubbish heap of time, all that stuff, boring sermons and everything. But this Eutychus story is not a story on delivering good sermons or about sin and punishment for inattention during worship. And I saw YouTube videos covering that, and I was horrified. The miracle of this story is he falls out the window and he's noticed. He falls and they go out. Paul stops preaching and goes out to engage someone who's been pushed to the outside, who's not in community, and may be seriously injured. Worship didn't come first. The decorum of how the service runs didn't come first. Causing a disturbance didn't come first. But it was the action. It wasn't the word, it was the action. The action of the community, of someone who noticed, and then they went out to save Eutychus. And when they go out, they see he's not moving. And the crowd said, "He's dead." And so Paul could have left him, gone back and resumed preaching. But he embraces him. He goes down, bends over, touches him, brings him there. Then he says, "There is still life in him," and brings him back to life and back into the community. And there is some debate as to whether Eutychus is dead or not. I think he is. But the way Paul says, there's still life in him. So even though he's fallen 3 stories, and it mustn't have been a pretty sight, he was brought back. So I want you to think about in our own community, in our church, in this place, or the Big C, anyone online, if you've been in physical community, or even online community, and you've been dropped out. How many people fall away? You know, we had a drastic falling away during the pandemic. And some because of physical moves, people just moving away to other places. Some were just simple disagreements. And some were because of irrelevance or growing up, or the church not having a clear message of space and inclusion. This doesn't just happen to youth, it happens to elders too. There are older Eutychuses. How many fall away because of distance, because of ability issues? Liminal spaces are broad, and inside quickly changes to outside. But you know what? In talking with our young people, there is interest in faith. There is interest in religion. There's interest in meaning for young people. And they face the challenges every day. They face falling out windows every day. And it can affect their school attendance. I'll tell you, Patrick, I still hate poetry because of that. Because I wasn't picked up. So, who cares? Should be, who cares? Who gets to declare who's fallen? Who gets to declare who's injured, who's dead? Which generation is privileged to call another lazy, indifferent, selfish, or clueless? And it goes both ways. The only way to see life is to get close and to see it. And like Paul, we have to leave our spaces, we have to leave the sermon, we have to leave the closed fellowship groups, disrupt decorum, go out and see what's going on, even if it's gross or messy or ugly, because someone's life depends on it. So the last part reminds us that we need to recognize, embrace, and go back into community. And you notice Eutychus wasn't chastised or rebuked for misbehaving or causing a disturbance or falling asleep. All it says is welcome back to break bread. And everyone was comforted, not angry, not annoyed, not feeling like they need to go to council and tighten the rules on window sitting. But it's about finding people and being real. So what do? Who cares? The man who can't hear or speak is engaged physically, touched as he is where he is, even to the point of Jesus putting spit in his mouth. Then Jesus commands, "Ephphatha, be open," and he hears and speaks. Jesus shows who cares and how to care. Ephphatha, be opened. And that's the same for us. Be open to signs, possibilities, engagement. Be open to hearing different ideas. Be open to noticing who's fallen out and why. Be open to engaging and bringing all of our Eutychuses back into community. So in the next couple of weeks, I'll be talking more about our intergenerational ministry. our online and Sunday programs, our opportunities for our monthly fun day gatherings that we have here. Liminal spaces are open spaces. Depending on which way they lead, they can bring possibility or alienation. They can bring exile or danger. They can bring welcome or shelter and freedom. We just need to be open. Who cares? We care, of course. Amen.